where you can ask this question about is science as an institution. And the way I always think of the history of science was that it started as a two-front war against both excessive dogmatism and excessive skepticism. And so if you are over in the 17th and 18th century, a scientist was a heterodox thinker who didn't believe in, let's say, the decayed Aristotelian scholasticism of the Catholic Church. And you were empirical, and there were these dogmas that you were open to questioning. But you also couldn't be extremely skeptical. So if you can't trust your senses, and if I don't believe you're sitting there, extreme skepticism was also incompatible with science. So extreme dogmatism was incompatible, extreme skepticism is incompatible. And the problem is, it's easy to be against one, but if you're always just against dogmatism, then maybe you're too skeptical of everything. And if you're always against skepticism, maybe you're too dogmatic. And so there's this very complicated balance where we need to be both anti-dogmatic and anti-skeptical. And probably my feel for it would be that in the 17th and 18th century, it was probably more anti-dogmatic than anti-skeptical, but it was, some of both. But if we fast forward to 2024 and you asked scientists, where is science too dogmatic, and where is science where are people too skeptical, where are people being too dogmatic? And I think there are a whole long list of things where they say there are climate change skeptics, there are vaccine skeptics, there are Darwin skeptics, there are all these people who are too skeptical, and the skepticism is undercutting science. So we're on war of skeptics of all sorts. And then if you asked the scientists, where are the scientists too dogmatic? I don't think they could tell you a single thing where science is too dogmatic. And doesn't that tell you that we have completely lost the sense of balance, and we are way too, that we are what has become science, I'll use scare quotes around science, is something that is more dogmatic than the Catholic Church was in the 17th century. And that at the margins, you can't go all out skepticism, and there's obviously there's a slippery slope to nihilism, and that doesn't work. But that's directionally that's where we have to course correct. And I don't think I don't, and then you have to go through all these specific issues and think about it. I don't particularly think that vaccines lead to autism. If they did, I don't think our science is capable of figuring it out, because the results would get suppressed, because it would undercut the lobby for vaccinations, and there obviously are a lot of good vaccines too, and if there was some truth to it, that would undercut it, and I'm pretty sure that question isn't being investigated. There has been a dramatic increase in autism in recent decades. We don't have particularly good explanations for it. Surely it's something we should be thinking about more. And so again, I don't think vaccines lead to autism. I do think it's the sort of question that it would be healthy if we were allowed to ask a little bit more than we are. And of course, there were we just went through this crazy exercise with the COVID epidemic, where we somehow cut off skepticism so prematurely, so many times, where not only was the skepticism healthy, but the skeptics were right. So there were people who were skeptical of the eating the bat from the food market, and no, it was you needed to be you needed not to be so dogmatic about the bat eating bats theory, and it was
and somehow
actually
the
Wuhan
eating
lab.
bats theory was the politically correct theory, which is kind of unbelievable.
Maybe it's disgusting to eat a bat. What sort of a society is it where people are starving so much that they need to eat bats?
But I think the fear is, if you go down the hey, maybe vaccines cause autism place, you can wind up very, very quickly in a place where polio is back and measles are back, because you see what I mean.
Yes.
How do you know when you've gone too far in the skeptical direction?
Well, I conceded there is a point where you go too far, but at the same time, my feel for it is that directionally, the science establishment is way too far on the dogmatic side, way too little, on the skeptical side. Maybe, like, we take climate change as an issue, maybe there's some part of it that I believe is true, but there are a lot of parts that are open for debate. Is maybe methane is a bigger greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, in which case it's cows flatulating in the Amazon are worse than when cars running on oil, and then you have all sorts of questions about and then sort of all sorts of layers of things that can't be discussed. So my intuition is these institutions have gotten very, very unhealthy. There's always a culture wars riff I have on this,